difference. And for those of you who are just starting to get plugged into WorldFire, I just wanted to take this opportunity to ask you guys some questions. And I guess the first one I'd like to know is how you guys met.
Well, it was a dark and stormy night on the night of my birth. No.
That's a loaded question for us. When I was in 6th grade, I got ran over by a truck riding my bike.
Wow.
And I had always remembered there being somebody there,
Okay.
but nobody ever stepped up and said that they were. So then I thought, well, maybe it was just an angel that was there with me.
Okay.
And Josh and I went to junior high and high school together, and he never said anything until we were engaged to be married. He's like, oh, by the way, remember when you got ran over by that truck? And I was the one that was there and called 911 and was holding you down. And
So he was your angel.
pretty much, yes. So that's when he met me. I don't really remember it, but no, we were friends through high school, acquaintances, and that's how we met.
That's awesome.
And we got connected after graduating. I don't know if I should say this, but we got connected on MySpace. So
MySpace.
yeah,
Wow, that's amazing.
yeah.
Wow.
Back before
Does that even
Facebook
exist
and
anymore?
Twitter and all that stuff. It was MySpace. Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. Man.
Yeah.
So you guys have been married now for how long?
13 years, so it'll be 14 in November.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you have 4 children?
We have 4 children.
Tell us about them.
Go ahead.
We've got Gabe and Eli. They're almost 12 and 11, all into sports.
That's
Everything sports and video games.
Okay.
Pretty much sums up their life right now. And then there's
And
Levi.
Jesus.
Jesus. Thanks for adding that in there. And then there's Levi, and he's 6.5, and he's my artsy, sweet, right?
Creative.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then there's Lane. She's our girl, and she's 3.5.
Okay,
and
so she runs the house, huh?
She runs the house, absolutely.
That's awesome.
Super girly, but can hold her own as well. So
Nice. Okay, between the two of you, who's the morning person?
I am.
You are?
Yes.
Josh, you're not a morning person?
I'm a night owl.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so I regularly stay up very late.
Got it. Okay,
And
so
I don't last past 9 p.m. really.
nice. So coffee or tea?
Coffee.
That was a quick answer. All right.
I like tea, but I'm not British, so.
Got it. Totally understand.
You
All
wish
right.
you were.
You wish you were. Got it. So just kind of changing the subject matter here, just kind of tell us like when you first encountered the Lord and from that transition, how that, provoked your heart to run after him more and that led into full-time ministry for you guys.
Yeah, I guess I'll go first. For me, I was into drugs and alcohol after high school, got into just some trouble, just living a lifestyle I shouldn't have been living, but grew up in church. Both my grandpas were pastors and evangelists, and so I could quote all the Bible stories to you, but it wasn't real in my heart, and just reached kind of rock bottom in a sense, and was very lonely. And one of the things that happened was that one night I ended up in my apartment alone. I lived with a gentleman at the time, and all my friends were out doing something, and I was just lonely, and it was the perfect opportunity for God to encounter me. And so I drank a bunch and did everything I shouldn't have did, and hopped in my vehicle and was just kind of questioning life in general, and ended up kind of wrecking my truck in a field and encountering the Lord in this field. And so for me, it was very dramatic in the sense that I'm laying there, I'm looking up to the sky, I'm, God, where are you, in a sense in this moment. And I had this visitation of Jesus, and he comes and he puts his hand over my heart, and he takes my hand and he puts it over his heart, and he kept them there until our hearts were beating the same.
Wow.
And I stood up, I was instantly sober, and I've never been the same since.
That's amazing.
And so it kind of started me on my journey, and yeah, that was kind of the big moment for me.
That's awesome.
So
Channing?
Yeah, I loved Jesus from a really young age. I can remember encountering him as a little girl, watching my parents, watching my dad, and always asking him questions. But we quit going to church when I was about 7.
Okay.
And so then everything else kind of took my attention, took over, and kind of same story, just very much into the party scene, and really just lost myself. Until, same thing, I lived in an apartment in Newark and just woke up one morning, I was basically like, what in the world am I doing?
Wow.
And I remember the Lord saying, come to me. And it was as simple as that. And within, I think I called my mom that day, within like 24 hours, moved home. And then just really, I wish I could say everything was easy right then and there, but really went down a journey of just finding not my parents' faith, but my faith.
Oh, wow.
And I started visiting different churches kind of by myself. It was a really precious season for me. And ended up landing at Outreach for Youth.
Okay.
And him and I started talking, and I took him with me. And I can remember the pastor, Margie Maldonado, called him up to the front of the church, and she said, pack your bags. You're going to go to the nations, and you're going to preach the gospel.
That's amazing.
And you could tell she was really encountering the Lord when she did that. And I can remember in the back of my head, like, she has no clue. He's probably hungover, like just, it was to look back now, it's just, God is so good. And it was really just a powerful changing point for the both of us.
So from those encounters, you guys started running hard after Jesus and pursuing him with all your hearts. And I know that kind of led into you guys going into full-time ministry. And so you started out at Zion Christian Fellowship in Powell, and then that culminated into you becoming the campus pastors of Zion Pickerington here. So tell us a little bit about that part of your story.
Yeah, so we were on staff at Zion Christian Fellowship, and of all the buildings to be signed over to Zion Christian Fellowship, it was this particular property at 5780 Baltimore Reynoldsburg Road. And when this property was signed over, we kind of took it as a sign of like, we should really be involved in this because we live just a few minutes away. A lot of people may not know this is actually where we were married at in 2007.
That's awesome.
We had our wedding reception, here, and so it was kind of a no-brainer. And so I just kind of reached out to, our pastors and just said, hey, I want to be involved in some way, shape, or form. And it kind of evolved into, us leading, being the kind of the campus pastors down here. So, that was in 2015. And so we've been here at Zion Pickerington since 2015.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. So when did you guys both start getting a heart for the nations? What did that look like for you both?
So I think for us, it started probably about 10 years ago, and we started traveling to different countries and with a group of friends, and really just started praying into those countries and worshiping, and it was kind of an exciting time just to see and experience other cultures and nations, and I think it really gave us an appreciation for God's heart for what He was doing in the nations. And I know, I don't want to speak for her, but I know that she had a pretty dramatic encounter that led back to a dream she had about a little African boy, and got a prophetic word about this little African boy, and led her down this path to get to Africa. Okay. And neither of us had ever been to Africa. And so she went to Africa and came back and absolutely was changed. Her life changed. And, I remember her just trying to talk about that experience, okay, and just crying every time she tried to talk about it. And so I felt like to be a good husband, I needed to go to Africa just so I could relate with her.
Wow.
And so I couldn't relate to what she had experienced. And so I went, and previously never had a heart for Africa. And, I like good coffee. I like nice hotels. I like air condition. Air condition is, I call, going from air condition to air condition in the summer, going glory to glory. But I like air condition. I like, those kinds of things, and as do most of us.
Yes.
But so it just didn't really fit the mold of why I felt like I didn't have this hunger to go to Africa. Okay. So I went just to be a good husband. I came back, and I was absolutely changed by it. Preached my first crusade, and that really kind of set us on the journey just to figure out, like, how do we do this and how do we be effective at
Okay.
it, and how do we do it to another level. And so, through lots of conversations, through just research and just figuring out like what does this look like for our future, we created a missions organization, and to be able to facilitate us doing this, and also being able to take teams, overseas to go.
And I can speak from experience. I got to go, and it was an amazing experience. It changed my life, marked me. So it's awesome.
Yeah, so that's kind of our journey of how we started into the nations, and the rest is kind of history.
That's awesome. So from there was the birthing of the organizational structure of WorldFire USA. So from there, going to the nations, and then this is born. What are the main components of WorldFire USA? What is your desire to see, God release through that?
So WorldFire USA is the global hub for all activities mission related that we do with WorldFire. And so that means that we have an affiliate NGO in East Africa called WorldFire Africa. We have our office there. It's kind of our first affiliate that we've created, and as a registered NGO, and so we have a full-time employee there. Shout out to Nicholas Torach, who is our East Africa director.
Yeah.
He's an amazing guy. But so WorldFire USA is the hub for all of the activities for missions-oriented things that we do, and some of the things that would make up components of that would be things like crusades, mission trips. Conferences. We do pastors' conferences, as well as compassion, action, humanitarian pieces, and partnering with other organizations, which my wife has done for a long time. So that's kind of some of those main components and the avenues in which we operate. But we just really have a heart to ignite revival in the nations, and that looks like stopping for the person in front of you, and it also might look like preaching to 30,000 people and seeing 30,000 people come to Jesus. Sure. And it's everything in between. Right. And so we want to meet practical needs as well as feed and meet spiritual needs.
Okay, so you guys are pastoring full time, and now you have the missions organization of WorldFire USA, and right now we're excited to talk about the transitional piece of WorldFire Church. So how did that come about, and talk about what you see the local expression of WorldFire Church being?
Yeah, so WorldFire Church actually wasn't necessarily on our radar in the sense that as far as part of WorldFire.
Okay.
So for us, WorldFire, was definitely a missions-based organization. We have a heart to fulfill the Great Commission, to preach the gospel, to stop for the one, those sorts of things. And so when we had the opportunity with our Zion Pickerington campus to actually enable this place to become WorldFire Church, we began to pray about it and felt just a real excitement from the Lord and a real peace about it. And so that led us to, talk to our team and our staff and our leaders, and everyone was unanimous in the sense that this felt like a great direction for us. And so that meant we had to start defining what that meant.
Sure, right.
And so when we, have the WorldFire USA, it's easy for me to talk about the missions aspect and all of that, and then so when we come to this issue of what kind of church do we want to be, and really just praying about it and just talking about it, I don't want to be a church that has a local missions organization. I want to be a missions organization that happens to have a local expression of a church.
That's awesome.
And so what that means is that, hopefully it breaks the mold and breaks the box of what our ideology is about church, and that church is not an event that we come to, but it's actually a life that we live out. Wow. And we actually accomplish church by being the hands and feet of Jesus in our day-to-day life. And so it's actually on mission. Yeah. It's like what Jesus said in Matthew 10, as you go, preach, saying the kingdom of heaven is at hand, heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons, freely you've received, freely give. And so when we actually live this out, it's like living life on mission.
Yeah.
And so that would be one distinction between WorldFire Church is that it is the local expression right here in Central Ohio of what WorldFire USA is. And so that means that we need to make an impact in our community locally through missions, through outreaches.
So you're going to nations and you're hitting neighborhoods as well.
Yes, and that's, thanks for teeing that up for me. That's one of our slogans we've kind of come up with is neighbors and nations.
Awesome.
And, if we want to hit nations, we want to see nations won for Jesus, let's start with our neighbors too. And let's not leave out the neighbors and the neighborhoods. And so as we accomplish these things, as we go after these things, one of the quotes that I absolutely love is that the light that shines the furthest shines the brightest at home. And so you have this aspect, and especially in the context of missions, that the further we go, and preach the gospel and unreached people groups, unreached nations, the brighter the light gets here, and then vice versa. They feed each other, and then now you have this ever increasing glory that comes because God's being manifest here on the earth through neighborhoods and nations. And so, one of the distinctions, just to reiterate, I think is the fact that we are a local expression of a missions organization. That means we still have community, we still have fellowship, we still have, house churches, which we'll probably talk about.
I'll go ahead and jump into that. So, as part of what I've heard is decentralizing church's norm. Let's talk about what that looks like as far as corporate gatherings for WorldFire Church and what you guys are referring to as firehouses, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So currently, last fall we switched our church schedule to where the first and third Sundays we meet corporately. Okay. So all of us come together and we have our corporate celebration, and we really see that as a vertical expression. I think all too often church, Sunday morning Christianity has been very horizontal, and it's been very much consumer mentality about what we can get for ourselves. When those times, that's built for us giving glory and honor to the Lord, and that's coming together as kings and priests and ministering unto the Lord. And I think for the believer, the first and foremost ministry is to Jesus. And so our corporate expressions are not necessarily for each other. They're for Jesus. And so we come together, we celebrate what God is doing in each individual life and ministry and everything that has happened, but also we come to celebrate and lift up the name of Jesus as a banner. And so it does leave a gap because we need community, we need fellowship. Discipleship happens life on life. And so
and I know it's really easy, like from past experience myself, it's easy to roll into the church late and leave early and really never have connection with people.
Absolutely. And so we wanted to come up with a solution for that. We wanted to, think about how do we not compromise on the vertical worship and the vertical expression to Jesus, but also not compromise on the fact that discipleship needs to happen, that relationships are extremely important. The Jesus said, what's the greatest commandment? Love God, love people. Those are the two greatest things. If we're not doing those, then what are we doing? And so, what we've decided to at least try out is hey, first and third Sundays, we're going to meet corporately, and that's our vertical expression to Jesus. On the second and fourth Sundays, that is horizontal. That is meeting in homes, which what we are affectionately calling firehouses.
I love it.
And meeting in homes, and we're having meals together. We're praying together. We're putting a chair in the middle of the room and praying over each other. We're meeting people where they're at. And so the house churches have been absolutely amazing. And I've got to give a lot of credit to my wife. She really had the vision for it. She had the heart behind it. And really, just heard from the Lord on it. And that's how we kind of started.
So Channing, elaborate on that a little bit. What was the distinct difference that you felt that needed to happen to break out of the box of the church walls?
Well, let me back up just a little bit.
Okay.
I think for the both of us, the more we went to the nations, the more there was a conviction to use that same intentionality, the same resources, the same passion, compassion here. And the very first time I ever went to Africa, I can remember coming out of the missions house, and there were all these children in ragged clothes, in bad condition, lined up on the fence. And I walked out and I just started weeping, and I said, Lord, I'll give my life for these faces at the fence. And that is what I said. And immediately I heard him very lovingly rebuke me and say, there's plenty of faces at the fence where you are. And ever since then, it was like, whoa, because it's really easy to have your Sunday morning service and feel like you did the thing.
Yeah. Check it off the list.
Yeah, and so ever since then, I really had this conviction with the Lord to really check my heart and am I giving the same intentionality in the nations as I am here, and vice versa. And American Christianity, we define the way that we do church here is very different there. And so when you see the differences, you begin to question, okay, is this American churchianity, or are we actually fulfilling the gospel and the Great Commission?
Yeah.
And we love our corporate gatherings. And just like Josh said, it's vertical worship to God. And so in our minds, like, that should be the celebration, the praise for what God has already done, and the celebration for what he's doing and what he's going to do. And so some people ask, why don't you just continue to have corporate services every Sunday and then just do, home groups, and that's great too. But for us, we just had a real passion for people to realize, like, we are the church. And so if we're gathering in a home together, like, that is church.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the scriptures, love one another the way Christ has loved you, bear one another's burdens, and that's what fulfills the law of Christ. Make disciples of nations, help the orphans and the widows in their distress. That doesn't happen on a Sunday morning. That doesn't happen in between the pews. But that does happen, and that can happen in those home churches where people gather and they really actually get to know each other. They really have the ability to bear one another's burdens. They really have the ability to disciple one another when you begin to see the calling on each other's lives and begin to function as the church. And so they're both needed. And we've just been incredibly excited to see the way God has been using this shift. That at first was a little bit scary. It was a big step to take, but we wouldn't turn back for anything, I think, at this point.
I know you guys have shared some wonderful testimonies about that. It's just amazing. So thank you guys. So what kind of church do you want to be?
So we've been asked that question a lot, and I think there's a couple of different things that I want to just be really clear about as far as distinctions of what kind of church we want to be. And the first thing is we are a presence-centered church, which means that we do things with the presence of God. We believe in the Holy Spirit. We believe in, the power of the gospel, and we're not program driven. We're not doing things to get people into the door. I know many churches are they're attraction based, where they're trying to attract. We're creating a space where the glory of God can come and change lives. Because if it's based off of the programs that we have and the things that we can do in the flesh, then the transformation that will happen, I believe, is just temporary. And so, but when we can create an environment where somebody can encounter Jesus, whether it be through a corporate gathering or whether it be through a home church in somebody's living room or around a kitchen table, or maybe it's through one of the outreaches or something that we, are in the streets doing, somebody encounters Jesus. It's something that you can't be talked out of. You have this experience, you have this encounter, and it's impossible for somebody to talk you out of it because you've experienced it yourself. It's not a decision that you made in the sense that somebody talked you into checking a box on a card, but it's something where a life is truly transformed. And so we're a presence-centered church. It means that what we do is it's for Jesus. So the Sunday morning gatherings, the corporate gatherings that we have, it is for Jesus. And so when we gather together, it's that vertical worship to Jesus. And when we come together, in our house churches on the second and fourth weeks, it's gathered around the presence, and we're seeing the presence of God. We're seeing God in other people. And so I'm learning to honor and recognize the God in you, and the fact that, it's not about a personality. It's not about a staff or a ministry or a name or anything like that. But by decentralizing church, we're actually opening the doorway and the avenue for people to understand that we can all hear God.
So good.
We can pray. We can all prophesy, and you don't need a title to be able to do that. And so I think that just in America, we've so built church culture around a Sunday morning stage and a personality and a name and a ministry and a brand. And all those things are important. All those things are, they're aspects of just what we do, but it's not the main thing.
Right.
And I think our heart is to keep the main thing the main thing.
So good.
And for us, the main thing is Jesus. And so, which I know, a lot of churches would say that, but we put it into practice in the sense that, we're going to challenge people. It's going to be uncomfortable. We're going to create space in our Sunday morning services for God to show up and do what only He can do.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. So what's next, guys? I mean, for those who are watching maybe for the first time or just getting their feet wet into WorldFire, how can they connect with you guys?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways they can connect to us. Firstly, I want to say if you're just getting kind of started with WorldFire and people are just kind of engaging with what God is doing and what's starting to happen here, we do have a facility in Pickerington that will be put up for sale. And so we're going to sell the facility, which means that our future home is TBD.
That's
so
awesome.
it's an exciting,
exciting.
it's an exciting time to be alive, in the sense that I wish I could tell people I have all the answers figured out, and we just know that we're following the Holy Spirit and we're following what God's asking us to do, and that church is going to look different. It's going to look unusually different in the sense that we hope that it starts to break molds of what American Christianity has made. And so with us, it just starts with the facility being sold and us kind of trying to discover what is next.
Right.
One of the things I think we've set in our heart is that we don't want it to look like a traditional church. Because we want to be a local expression of a missions organization. I think that we need to think differently and think outside the box in terms of meeting space and utilizing and just being good stewards. And so we're envisioning all kinds of different ideas, but yeah, it's just not traditional.
Yeah.
So we're excited about that, and I think for people who want to get involved, we're on social media. We WorldFire Church on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, and as well as people can text WF Church to 77411. I
Say
feel
it
like
again.
WF Church, 77411. I feel like I'm on like QVC or something. Act now, but yeah, they can text that keyword to that short code, and they'll be sent a link, and they can fill out the information on that link, and that adds them to our mailing list and everything to be able to stay up to date with what's next, where we're going next, what we're going to be doing. But for now, as far as our launch, we're in.
We have a launch Sunday.
We've been in transition. And so we plan on having a launch Sunday, March 7th, which is next Sunday.
Yes, it is.
And so we're excited to...
Where's that going to be at?
It's going to be at our facility, 5780, Reynoldsburg, Baltimore Road. And we're going to...
In this room
that we're sitting in right here. So we're just trying to change and break molds and break boxes, awesome. And so we're excited to just explore and see what God has for us. But we're going to be in this room, launch Sunday, March 7th, as for WorldFire Church. And so we're super excited, and hope everybody comes.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time to just share your hearts and share the vision of WorldFire. And thank you guys for joining.